All right, take it away, Jeanette.
Awesome, thank you. And welcome everyone to the legislative process. We will be speaking of how a bill becomes law. Today is March 29, 2022, and welcome to the NSW New Jersey and Delaware Legislative Education and Advocacy Day. Let me take some time to introduce you to the interns from the NSW New Jersey who will be working on the PowerPoint this morning. We have Leah Russo, Charles Gerardo, Elisabet Amaris, and myself, Jeanette Torres. We also want to give a big thank you to our lead staff, Jeff Feldman, MSW, LSW, Director of Advocacy and Communications. So let's start talking about the branches of the USA government. There's 3 branches. We have the legislative branches who carries out and enforces the law. You might ask yourself, who assembles that advocacy branch? So we have the president, the vice president, the cabinet, executive departments, independent agencies, other boards, commissions, and committees. Then at the state level in New Jersey, you have the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the executive team. In Delaware, you have the governor, the lieutenant governor, and agency, executive agencies. I do want to give a little disclaimer. Most of the information will be coming from New Jersey, but we will make sure to put information regarding Delaware as well. The legislative branch drafts and enacts laws.
Sorry, Jeanette, I just want to interrupt you for 1 second. I'm really sorry. I just realized we forgot to do the first attendance check. If you all look in the chat box, you'll see a message from Razia that says attendance check 1. Just click that jot form link to acknowledge that you're here, and we'll post it a couple of more times over the next 5 minutes, just so you all can get it. So be sure to check in. Jeanette, I'm really sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay, no worries. So we are going to start with the legislative branch. It drafts and enacts a law. It confirms or rejects presidential nominations for heads of federal agency, federal judges, and the Supreme Court, and it has the authority to declare war. At the federal level, this is a branch that consists of the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. In New Jersey, it consists of the State Senate and the General Assembly. In Delaware, it's comprised of the Delaware Senate and the House of Representatives. The judicial branch interprets and the meanings of law, applies the law to individual cases, and decides if the law violated the Constitution. The judicial branch at the federal level consists of the Supreme Court and lower federal district courts. At the state level, it is the New Jersey Supreme Court and lower courts. Let's take a closer look at the legislative branch. Creating laws is the most important job of the legislative branch in government. All of the laws enacted at the federal and state levels begin as bills. However, before any bill can become a law, it must be approved by both the legislative chambers and the chief executive office. For example, if we're speaking about the federal level, the laws will start first at the U.S. House of Representatives. Once it receives its approval, then it goes to the USA Senate. Once it receives its approvals or votes, then it's sent to the president. President Biden has the choice to either accept it or reject it. Then at the state level, when we're speaking about New Jersey, the law will be proposed to first the New Jersey General Assembly. If it receives its votes and approval, then it will pass on to the New Jersey State Senate. Again, once it receives its votes and approval, it'll be sent to Governor Murphy to either reject it or accept it. Now let's look at the federal legislative branch. We have 100 senators, 2 selected per state. Term is 6 years. Senators from New Jersey, Cory A. Booker and Robert Menendez. Delaware senators, you have Thomas A. Carper and Christopher A. Coons. We have 435 representatives divided among the 50 states in proportion to their total population, 2 terms each. This is where the population is very important. As you can see, New Jersey has 12 members of the House of Representatives representing 12 distinct districts throughout the state. As for Delaware, it only has 1 House of Representatives representing the whole entire state. We have 5 delegates. non-voting members of the United States House of Representatives, the District of Columbia, the Virgin Islands, Guam, America Samoa, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. We have one resident commissioner, Congresswoman Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, Republican from Puerto Rico, can vote in committees and certain votes on the House floor, but not if her vote would be a decisive. The one House of Representative that we have from Delaware, Lisa Blunt Rochester, who is from a prominent family of political social workers in Jersey and Delaware. Some New Jersey representative you might have heard of is Frank Paulin, Andy Kim, Mikey Sherrill, and Bonnie Watson Coleman. So let's look at the New Jersey Legislative Branch. Legislative sessions are typically held on Mondays and Thursdays. During the week, legislators often hold committee meetings or public hearings. In the New Jersey Legislative Branch, consists of 40 senators, 34 Democrats, and 16 Republicans, 80 assemblymen, 46 Democrats, and 34 Republicans. To your right, you will see the 2022 Senate chamber seating. Again, there is 40 senators. This is just a continuation of the New Jersey Legislative Branch. To your right, you will see the 2022 Assembly member chamber seating, which is holding 80 members at this time. New Jersey, the current legislative session began as of January 11, 2022 and runs for 2 years. In New Jersey, between the Assembly and the Senate, nearly 10,000 bills were introduced each session. Only a small number of these became law. New Jersey Legislative Leadership. We have Craig Coughlin, Speaker of the Assembly, Nicholas Scuteri, Senate President. The Federal Legislative Leadership, you have Chuck Schumer from New York, Senate Majority Leader, and Nancy Pelosi from California, Speaker of the House. Now I'm gonna give this mic over to Leah Russo.
Hi friends, I'm Leah from Eastern Kentucky University, and we are going to get into the legislative process. So the first step of the legislative process is that a bill is proposed. So the bill can be proposed directly by a legislator, or it can be proposed to a legislator by a concerned member of the public who requests that that legislator proposes a bill. Once the bill is written, that legislator becomes the primary sponsor. And that person has the sole responsibility of discussing the bill with other legislators and trying to gain support for that bill. Those in support of that bill become co-sponsors. So after the bill has the ideal support of co-sponsors and the primary sponsor, it's ready to be introduced to the full legislature. Jeanette, next slide, please. So next is the introduction of the bill. So first thing that's going to happen is a clerk is going to assign the bill a letter and a number. So bills in the House of Representatives start with HR, bills in the Senate start with an S. At the federal level, in New Jersey, bills in the General Assembly begin with A, and bills in the New Jersey Senate begin with S. So it'll be a letter followed by a number, and that number is the order of the bills that they're doing. Next is a reading clerk is going to read that bill to the assembled legislators. So if it's in the House clerk is going to read the bill to the House, and so on. And next, the leader of the legislative chamber is going to assign that bill to a committee. It's going to assign it to a committee that it belongs to and it makes sense to be in. Jeanette, next slide, please. So what is a committee? Committees are subgroups within the legislature. Each committee has a different topic that they focus on. So some examples just across the board, both federally, New Jersey, Delaware, all around the states. Some common ones, some common committees that you'll see are education, labor, human services, all that kind of fun stuff. They read bills that are about what they are related to. So bills that are about education are going to go to the education committee. Bills that are about agriculture are not going to go to the education committee. They're going to go to a separate committee. Jeanette, next slide, please. So when the bill is in committee, the members are going to review the bill, they're going to research it, and they're going to revise it. So they're going to consider amendments to the bill, see if they want to change it at all, and then they're going to put it to a vote. At that point, they can vote to release the bill to the chamber floor. So whatever chamber they belong to, they can send it to that floor. They can vote to send it to another related committee. So education might also go into like public safety or something like that if it's related. Or they can just decide to vote to hold the bill in the committee indefinitely. At this point, this is your advocacy checkpoint. This whole day is about advocacy. This is the big advocacy checkpoint. So while you're in committee, while the bill is in committee, members of the public or organizations can come and comment on a bill and provide testimony. We at the NASW New Jersey do that all the time. Right now, some committee meetings are in person, some are over Zoom. So you can register to provide testimony via sometimes over a link, sometimes you have to physically be there and provide a slip of paper, or you can just provide a slip of support and say that you support that bill. That's the big advocacy checkpoint, and we want to really emphasize that that is the point where we are doing the most advocating for bills. Next slide, please. So what are standing committees? Standing committees meet regularly and they exist on a permanent basis. They work on the related subject matter, like I mentioned before. And there's different ways you can get assigned to that legislators get assigned to their various committees. And that kind of varies from state to state, but generally the leader of the chamber will assign the different legislators to their committees. Ad hoc committees are temporary and they're established as needed. Sometimes they can turn into a standing committee, but usually they just exist in a temporary moment and they just talk about what's needed in that moment, and then they no longer exist. Can I get the next slide, please? All right, right now I'm going to turn it over to Charles.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Giraldo. I am a social work intern at the NASW New Jersey chapter. I am a senior at Rutgers University, Newark campus, class of 2022. Today, I will start presenting about the legislative bill getting reported out of the committee process. After being approved by the committee, a bill is sent to its chamber floor for a vote. In the federal government, the Senate and House, or in the state government, the Senate and Assembly. At this point, the bill will either be passed, not passed, which will kill the bill, or it may be sent back to a committee. If a bill is sent back, a conference committee will be appointed with the Senate and the House to resolve any differences. Next slide, please. At this point, once the bill reaches the floor of the chamber, it gets debated on by the full legislative body. The legislative members amendments to the bill. Once debate is concluded, the bill is ready to be voted on for final passage. The voting system consists of electronic voting system, which registers records of members' votes. Also by voice votes, which consist of recording verbal votes from each member as they say either yay, which means yes, or nay, which means no, or abstain, which means decline to vote, either for or against the bill. Next slide, please. A bill can originate in either the House or the Senate. Sometimes a bill is introduced at the same time in both the House and Senate. These are called companion bills. The bill must pass through the House and the Senate in the exact same form before it can be sent to President or Governor for signature to become law. Next slide, please. Bills are approved after each legislative chamber, federal government, which is the Senate and House, and the state government is the Senate and Assembly, has approved the bill. Legislation sends it to the president or governor for approval. If the president or governor signs it, it becomes law. If the president or governor take no actions on the bill, it will automatically become law while legislation is in session. I'm sorry, which is 10 days in the federal government and 45 days in the state government. So if the president, governor refuse to sign the bill, which they veto it, there are multiple outcomes. A conditional veto, which the chief executive suggests amendments that would make the bill acceptable to them. An outright veto, which the president governor kills the bill and it would not become law unless, next slide, please. As mentioned in the previous slide, the president governor's veto with any suggested changes, such as the condition veto, or allow the chief executive to kill the bill, such as the outright veto. The legislators have the ability to override the vetoes. The authority for the override power is always included in a federal and state constitution, which also specifies how many legislators are needed to override a veto, which requires a 2/3 vote from both chambers, Senate and Assembly, of the legislator. However, this is a very rare occurrence. And now I present Elisabet, who will continue. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you were taking notes because now it's time for your quiz. So I'm just kidding. We don't have a quiz. I'm going to just review really quickly what we should have been learning up to now. So we understood today that we have 435 representatives. 12 of those belong to New Jersey. And we have 100 senators that are representing all of our states. Together, we have about 80 assembly people. And again, all of these elected officials are working to carry out the changes that we are also to participate in. So we understand that even though over 10,000 bills were presented, only a few of them became laws. So we want to continue to understand what are the steps in these legislative processes and how do we become involved. Understanding that amendments can also be made along the process allows us to understand how important advocacy is and how we can also step in. Now, Leah also mentioned that there is an important checkpoint, right? Advocacy checkpoint. While bills are in committee, the public organizations such as NASW can comment on a bill and provide testimony, which we often do. The bills can be passed or not passed, or it can even be sent back. So when bills, they must be approved in both chambers. That's what our friend Charles indicated, right? So we want to continue to understand that even though it can be sent for signature, it can be sent back, it can be vetoed, or it can be approved. Now, how can we get involved to make these changes? Understanding that your involvement is key in legislative and policy advocacy is crucial. We can call, we can email our legislators, we can testify on a bill in a committee. We can write letters to the editor of your local newspaper, sharing your thoughts on a piece of legislation. And I know that sometimes it may feel that it is very tedious, but it does make a difference. We have witnessed this, we have seen it with recent laws that have been passed. And I'm going to give an example of that in a few. So getting involved with organizations such as New Jersey Citizen Action, and there's many more, and we can continue to give out those resources to ensure that we are all informed of how to get involved. NASW New Jersey, we just pride ourselves. We love being involved, and we love becoming leaders in all the areas of advocacy, education. And our recent example is that we participate in advocacy campaigns. We testify before the legislators on bills that impact the social workers and the clients that we service. The New Jersey chapter also advocates on behalf of social workers with the Division of Consumer Affairs and the BSWE, which is the Board of Social Workers on Examiners, to address the issues that are related to social workers with licensing and other professional practice concerns. What is the next slide, please? So before we get to our questions, we want to give you a recent example. So as we know, there have been lots of talk in the few years about different types of discrimination. And one of them that we have often faced in disproportionate communities has been how we choose to wear our hair. Recently, we have been hearing about the Crown Act. At the federal level, it was passed in the House of Representatives earlier this month and will now be voted on by the Senate. New Jersey has already passed the Crown Act for our state, led by the efforts of the Senator Sandra Cunningham. And if the US Senate passes the Crown Act and President Biden signs it, the law will be effective throughout our entire country. What this means is that we can no longer be discriminated on how we choose to wear our hair in, say, a workspace, schools, or any other like public entity. So these are the important steps that occur in the legislative process in order for a bill to become a law. And we see how this truly does affect all of us and how we can become involved. Time for questions.
Thank you so much, NASW New Jersey interns, Leah, Charles, Jeanette, and Liz. That was fantastic. We really appreciate the presentation. I know one question came in while they were speaking that I answered in the chat, but it was a very good question, so I'll repeat it for the public. One of the attendees asked if the committee schedules and bills were available online so that people could see what was being presented. And the answer is yes. In New Jersey, that information is posted on the website for the New Jersey Legislature, which is njleg.state.nj.us, and I will put that in the chat. So here's the link to New Jersey Legislature. And if you go to that website, there will be a link that says calendar or legislative calendar. And when you go in there, it will show you all of the voting sessions and committee meetings that are scheduled. And then usually within 5 days, but sometimes very last minute of when the committee meeting is held, the leader of the chamber will what they call post bills that are going to be in that committee. And then they will be listed in the calendar, and you can actually click the live link, and you'll be able to then see the bills that are being presented. Also, really quickly, what's going on now, you may be seeing a pop-up about breakout rooms. You all don't need to worry about that. We're just gathering our presenters for the next panel so we can just make sure they're all set. And then
there are a couple more questions
we'll get
in
started.
the chat.
Yeah, I see that there are questions too. I'm just trying to go through that list right now. So I see, how does the organization, or how should social workers prioritize which bills speak on or focus on? So one of the main ways that NASW New Jersey prioritizes the bills that we will be addressing are based on social work ethics and values. So we consider what the mission of social work is, what the social work profession dictates we should do in certain situations, and that reveals a lot of ways that the bills that we should be paying attention to. Beyond that, a lot of it depends on what is pressing issues that we are dealing with in society. And so we will elevate some of those issues to higher priority than others, because obviously we can't be involved in absolutely everything. But so for instance, right now, our priorities include issues like public safety and violent prevention and police reform. At the New Jersey state level, we're always concerned with issues related to professional licensing in New Jersey and in the country. Any issues that have to relate to the professional practice of social work and could impact how social workers conduct their practice. That could include anything from licensing laws to laws that dictate how we can do telehealth and telemedicine. Other areas that we're interested in are health, mental health, and healthcare. We're always very involved in those issues. We've been involved with issues with correction and trying to address recidivism and making sure that there are strong reentry programs, so anti-poverty programs. So there's a lot out there, and we generally just try to organize about what is the most important things that are going on at the moment and where we think we can have the most impact. For instance, some of you may have seen on social media, tomorrow there is a congressional briefing about social workers in schools, and a New Jersey member, Tiffany Walker, is actually on the panel for that congressional briefing. It's tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. and you can find a link to join that briefing on our social media. I think I see another question. What exactly are amendment checkpoints? Can you provide an example, please? Sure. So the most direct points for social workers to have advocacy pressure points, there are two main ways to do that. One of them is when a bill is in committee, and I think that's what you are referring to when you talk about amendment pressure points. So when bills are in committee, they are weighed by the legislators in that committee, and the committee members vote yes or no as to whether or not they are in favor of that bill. So when the bill is in that committee, it can be amended. And so this is a good time that advocates can go in and testify before the committee members and let them know if they support a bill, if they oppose it, and why, and if they think there should be changes to the bill. So that's one advocacy pressure point. The other thing that you can do, even when a bill is not in committee, if there is a bill that you're interested in or concerned about, you can contact your legislator's office directly and ask to speak with their legislative aide or a policy representative. And you can talk to them about what you think of a bill and how it impacts you as a social worker and as a constituent. And those type of meetings are very, very meaningful, more meaningful, in fact, than when an organization goes out to provide comment, because the legislators want to hear from you. You're the people that elect them. You're the people that they are responsible to. So when somebody in their district, somebody who can vote for them in an election cycle, calls about an issue, legislators take that really seriously. So you always want to take advantage of those pressure points to get to know your legislators and speak with them. Sorry, I got to pop up. Our next panel is just about ready. I just wanted to also point out that if you have not done the attendance check-in yet, the link is in the chat. Razia, can you post it one more time? Attendance link 1. And if you have not clicked on that attendance link yet, please click it, complete it with your email and name as you registered so we can match it to the registrations. That way we can document for faculty that you were in attendance here if you're receiving credit for today. So with that, I think we're going to pause for just a moment or two. You can feel free to get up, take a quick stretch. We're just going to bring our next panel of presenters together, and we'll get started in just 2 or 3 minutes. So